If you spend any time lurking in places where people talk about martial arts, Facebook, Reddit, martial arts forums, and so on, there's a question that comes up all the time. It might be the most asked question ever, and that is, I'm 37. Am I too old to do jiu-jitsu? I'm 42, I'm 46, I'm 48, I'm 52, I'm 57, I'm 63. Am I too old to do jiu-jitsu? Let's see if we can dispel this thing once and for all, although I know we can't. Usually the person asking that question, they're looking for validation, and maybe they're a little nervous to try this, and they just want some validation. And then all the people answering those questions are people that are just sharing their experience. So that's cool. It's never gonna go away, but let's see if we can at least make a dent in answering this question. Are you ever too old to do jiu-jitsu? No, no, you're not. Thanks for watching. Oh, you're still here? Okay, let's talk about it. So if nothing else, I'm living proof that you can start jiu-jitsu relatively late in life and go on and earn your black belt. I was 41 when I started jiu-jitsu. Took me 15 years to earn a black belt. So I know it can be done. It can be done. So the question is, no, you're never too old, but there's an asterisk there. There's a caveat. And that caveat is that it assumes that your body functions reasonably well, that you're not completely broken down and beat up from years of doing sports when you're young, that your knees aren't all messed up, that your shoulders aren't completely jacked up. You need to have a body that functions reasonably well. You also need to have a body that has reasonably good mobility. I'm a huge, huge proponent of having excellent mobility as you get older, because it's critical to expressing beautiful jiu-jitsu. And along with that mobility is getting yourself relatively lean. A lot of guys and gals, as they get older, the midsection expands, you're sedentary, you're not doing things like you did when you were a kid to improve your mobility or to keep it intact. And so over the years, your mobility declines, your girth expands, and your body as constituted now is not optimal for doing jiu-jitsu. You can do it, but it's not optimal. Why? Because at its most fundamental level, at its core, jiu-jitsu is nothing more than a movement art. The quality of your jiu-jitsu will always be directly proportional to the quality of your movement. And the quality of your movement is proportional to your mobility, how much mobility you have. If you have excellent mobility as an older athlete, and if you're relatively lean so that you can be efficient, now you have a machine that is going to be able to do jiu-jitsu for the long term pretty effectively. And so that's kind of the X factor. Usually when guys come to me, and I've had a lot of people over the years come to me and say, hey, what should I do to be able to do jiu-jitsu? I'm 47 or 50 or whatever their starting point. I usually say that. I say, number one is you're going to have to make sure that your mobility is really good. That's the key. We have to be able to move. You have to be able to transition. You have to be able to see those windows of opportunity and get yourself to that next position, get yourself set up for the submission. You have to be able to move. And you have to be able to move efficiently, because as you get older, your physical attributes decline. You can still maintain strength as you get older. A lot of guys are gym rats and they lift heavy and they continue to be very, very strong even as they're older. But usually those guys that are in the gym all the time lifting weights, they tend to have bad shoulders. They don't have great mobility. Everything is a compromise in jiu-jitsu, and one of those compromises is that if you focus on developing absolute strength, there's a good chance that you're going to be robbing yourself of mobility, and you're going to be robbing yourself of efficiency, because those big muscles, they need a lot of fuel, or if you're carrying around a lot of extra weight, you need a lot of fuel. As you get older, your max heart rate declines, your joints don't function quite as well, your recovery can be a problem, you know, you develop some back problems, some neck problems. I mean, we start wearing out. I mean, that's the fact of life. How do you deal with that? Well, you deal with that by continuing to have excellent mobility and continuing to, and keeping your body relatively lean so that you can be efficient. You don't have to be the strongest guy in the room. You don't have to be the most fit. You don't have to be the most athletic. But if you can be efficient as measured by your ability to move yourself in 3 dimensions without getting very tired, now you've given yourself a really good chance of developing beautiful jiu-jitsu that you can express from now until you're 75 years old. So mobility and being relatively lean, having reasonably high strength to weight ratio, but it's more about being able to move yourself. Look into animal movements, look into mobility drills. All that stuff is excellent. I love that stuff because I think it has huge transferability to jiu-jitsu, especially as you get older. The second thing I would say about being an older athlete is you have to manage your expectations. I've seen many people in their 40s start jiu-jitsu that once upon a time, they were a high school wrestler, they were a high school football player, but it's been many, many years and they've been very sedentary. But in their mind, they're still that 20-year-old or that 18-year-old. And what happens is they just get way too competitive on the mat and they end up getting injured. The truth is, once you hit about 35, 38, 40, you're not the same person you were. Recovery is going to be a problem. And injury potential is higher, so you have to manage your expectations. And one of those expectations is that you will be less effective than you would be if you were 20. Effective as measured by your ability to get the tap, effectiveness in terms of your ability to avoid being put in disadvantaged positions, being flat on your back in side control, let's say. So your effectiveness will decrease as you get older. How do you compensate for that lack of effectiveness? Well, you compensate for it by developing incredible technique. You have to focus your efforts on technical development. I've said this many times on this channel, there are always technical solutions to physical problems. As you get older, you have to tap into those technical solutions. When you're young, you can muscle stuff. You don't have to have great technique to have success when you're young. As you get older, you have to have great technique if you intend to be effective. And this brings up the point that you are probably going to be on a slower train when you're older. It's going to take you longer to advance through the belts. It did me. I hated to admit that, but it just takes longer. Why? Because you don't have those physical attributes to rely on to kind of shortcut your lack of technique. You have to go all the way and develop the great technique. And that takes a while. So you have to manage your expectations by being patient with yourself, by dialing down the competitiveness, by suppressing your ego. We all have egos. Some young buck comes at you at an 8 out of 10, let's say, in terms of intensity. The easy thing is to just match that. They come at you here, you're gonna match that. Sometimes that's what we have to do, or you're not going to be competitive. You're gonna be on the run. But the thing is, if that's your strategy with everybody you roll with, you're gonna get hurt, you're gonna be beat up, you're gonna leave the gym completely, thrashed. Recovery is gonna be a problem. It's better to let go of that and know that, okay, I can only be here in terms of my output. I can only sustain 3,000 RPMs. This kid can sustain 5,000 RPMs. That's okay. It means I'm gonna have to practice my defense a lot when I roll with this kid because he's coming at me here and I can only respond here. But over time, improve your timing, your sensitivity, so that you don't need to be as powerful or as fast or as explosive to be able to deal with somebody who's coming at you at this level and you can't match that. There are always technical solutions, but those solutions take a while. You have to be in those positions over and over and over to develop the timing to deal with it. What is timing? Timing is two things. It's recognition and it's the ability to take action. It's recognition that there's a moment where something could happen. There's a moment where there's a transition that could happen. There's a moment where a submission might be had. It's a recognition that there is an opportunity, and it is your ability to put yourself into a good place to take advantage of that opportunity. That's all that timing is. Timing and sensitivity are certainly things that you can improve as you get older. You can continue to improve those year after year, even though you become slower in an absolute sense. And so that's really the goal. To be effective, you need timing, sensitivity, understanding of the game. You need to be mechanically sound with your body positioning, and those things just take time. You have to be more patient with yourself as you get older and really squash that ego. I did a video on this subject called Jiu Jitsu When You're Old, I think it's called. It's been a real popular video on this channel for a long, long time, and I go much deeper into some of these things, and you're certainly welcome to watch that video. This is just a quicker one, but those are really my thoughts on this subject. Number one is you need to work on your mobility, get yourself functioning as well as possible. That's gonna be huge in terms of your longevity and your overall health in the sport. Get your weight under control, get yourself lean, get yourself physically in a good place where you can do this and recover adequately. And then number two, you just have to manage your expectations. Don't go in there trying to conquer the world in 1 year. Jiu-Jitsu's a journey. I'm still on the journey. There is so much left for me to learn. Every day I find new things, new ways of thinking about Jiu-Jitsu. It's never ending, but you have to get yourself on the path in a way that gives you a reasonable chance of getting there without just being completely beat up and worn out and thrashed before that happens. So good luck to you if you're an older athlete and you're wanting to try Jiu-Jitsu. It's a phenomenal art. It will change your life. It's changed many lives. It's changed my life. There are so many lessons that I've taken from Jiu-Jitsu and implemented into my own life to great positive impact. And I know it'll happen to you as well. So there you go. We'll talk next time.